Moment right now. We get a salute. The breakaway's been held up here. They'll have to reintroduce the gap, and so the course will be drawn to a hiatus, I'm afraid. It looks like Bettiol is just about to meet those who have been halted up front. He's being called to come over. He'll have his gap put back in, 29 seconds. But
first question, do I get my gap?
I want my gap.
Yeah, that's what he wants to know. Yeah. Afterwards, will I get it? Of course he wants to know. Oh, dear. Oh, well, we'll get some info from Bradley Wiggins in a short while. But if it has been neutralised, Sean, they should hand the gaps back. But how long this demonstration will go on for is anybody's guess.
Yes, well, there will be the gaps will be given to whatever was out situation on the road before you slow down here. And how long they will stop, that is something... I do not know. Maybe the race organiser doesn't know for the moment. They'll just try and get it off the road as quickly as possible and get on with the race. But it does upset the rhythm of the race when you have to stop like this. And if you have to stop for quite a while, then you lose that rhythm. Bettiol here, he was riding on his own, getting into a good rhythm, probably making his way, pulling back the advantage. But we can see here.
Not nice and unsafe. So Bettiol managed to get his way through. He weaved past the powder flares. He's just going to get rid of some ballast. And meanwhile, everyone else is held up. They will reinstate the gaps, but how long we have to wait is the question. Oh, dear. Well, just as we were regaling you with the story of Sean Kelly just putting people to bed, essentially, in terms of challenge, we have another challenge here, and it's a demonstration. It's been a while since this has been an impact. We had the security involved a couple of years ago. I think you might remember when, in fact, they had to use pepper spray, and the riders were affected by that as well. I think it was 2016. Let's hope that this is dealt with cleanly.
Yes, we're just here. There's obviously been a demonstration of some sort on the road, much like they had in the UK a couple of months ago there, with the imbeciles sat on the road there. Two of them actually sat in the middle of the road there. They had a noose around their neck and around the other person's neck. And I was watching the ASO. They were quite, as the French are, get quite angry at things like this, dragging them off the road. You can actually see them there, dragging them off the road. Pascal Lino, ex-Tour de France yellow jersey, obviously threw one down in the ditch there. And another lady had her legs under the car. I mean, it's quite crazy, really. Think whatever they're protesting about, probably over nothing. But scenes here, and we don't need that disrupting this bicycle race here. So a lot of people getting quite angry here, actually. Some of the DSs jumped out the car, stuck a boot in. It really was going off. Great scenes here. Chuck you back to the commentary team.
Thank you, Brad. Oh, well, it sounds like it got quite animated down there, Robbie. Bradley Wiggins himself, naturally, as a former rider, knows how disruptive this is, and emotions running to the fore.
Yeah, emotions always run high, but what the key is now is the logistics of how this works out, because everybody, of course, wants to have the gap that they had before this interruption to the race. So, although we saw Alberto Bettiol skirt his way around that protest and the others were already through, they do need to sort of stop everyone and wait till they can get the calculations right and reinstate those gaps.
So the front rider has been stopped, Alberto Bettiol. The chasing riders have also been stopped, and we ask you to tell your riders in the peloton to slow down, because we are going to stop them as well. All the gaps have been taken between the two groups.
There we are, Race Radio. All the gaps have been taken and will be reinstated, Sean, as it should be.
Yes, and we can see there, that Bettiol went through. You want to be just ahead of the protest and just wait, but yeah, we can see there the motorbike was just giving the information at the front of the peloton. You just ride slower, because you're going to have to stop a bit later on anyway, and everybody will restart with the advantage they had at the point when they came to these demonstrations.
Yeah, and although the gaps are going to be reinstated, it's a good opportunity for UAE just to go off the gas, roll the legs out, get a bit of recovery. But you know who it's really good news for? Any riders who are further out the back in the gruppetto, because they won't be stopped. They won't be taking their gap at the moment and make them stop, I don't imagine, because they'll just keep on chasing. They're quite a long way further back down the road. So they will be enabled to get back closer to the race, and the time cut will not be a problem.
Yeah, I don't think... Will their retrograde gap be imposed upon them?
I doubt it for the back ones. It's something they don't really have a handle on. It's quite often they don't even know what the gap is, so it's quite possible they'll just be allowed to ride up closer and continue on their way.
Of course, there's been some squealing wheels here, as you can see, as described on the asphalt. These guys able to give themselves a breather. I don't know whether this is going to make it more dramatic or indeed knock it back just a little bit. Bettiol just wants to get on with the task at hand.
It reminded me of cows in a field,
solo.
Carlton.
Yeah.
See them all like under that patch of shade, all crowded together like cows in a field with one tree.
Well, no suspicion of rain today. None of that, thank heaven. The weather's been absolutely impeccable. We're, as you can see, they've got a little bit of a tailwind today as we've made the turn by the lake and we're heading back down south. And Mezhev beckons for us, Sean. It's not what you want to break the rhythm of the day, though, is it?
No, I don't think the riders would like it to have to stop here, and for some it's worse than others, because if you're like Bettiol, for example, if you're riding your own there and then you have to start off, depend on how you manage that as well. Some riders, when they get a rest like this, they can go really well and kick off and go up to pace again very, very quickly. Other ones, you get the big legs when you stop for a couple of minutes, and it takes you a couple of K to get back into that rhythm again. So yeah, it depends on what you like, and some riders and riders differ as well because of this, but it's definitely not a nice thing for the race at all. But it's something we've seen in these Tour of France's. I've seen it myself over the years many times in other races where it does happen.
Yep, very hard to get the legs going again, isn't it, Sean? I mean, we know that now from when we do a ride and we stop for a coffee or a cold beverage, and you jump back on to try and go again to finish the rest of the ride. That first 5 or 10 minutes, it's like you're pedaling squares.
Well, we have just over 36 kilometres of the day remaining, according to timing at the moment. We'll see how long they keep them rolling such as this. We're still waiting. It looks like our gruppetto is going to reform itself, and that gap, as Robbie was saying, is not going to be imposed on those who were struggling. So a rolling return. Bettiol concerned that he wanted his 29 seconds instilled, Sean. Apparently it's declared as 28, but near enough. He'll be pleased with that.
Well, yes, I think we could see that immediately. He realised, and understood what was happening, because sometimes when you're racing along, if you're in the peloton, of course, there's a lot of confusion. The riders in front there, they can get what the race commissar is giving them, or the part of the race organisation. But the riders back further, they're asking what's happening, what's going on. But when you're like Bettiol out in front, I think we could see that immediately. He knew, he understood what was happening. He was on about, my advantage, my gap. He was looking for that immediately. And that is the understanding for the riders when you have a situation like that. When we get these the train crossings as well, the barrier come down, sure, we know about that. The riders in front, of course, if you go ahead before the barrier come down, you get the advantage, and if you come and the barrier come close, that's the lost time, unless there's certain circumstances as well, because in the rule there, if there's certain circumstances, and if you get caught for too long, I suppose they can stop the race further up and restart again. But we can see here now,
there we go,
they're just going to try and give the same advantage.
The advantage, by the way, to the breakaway was 7 minutes. The gap was 7 minutes and 10. Bettiol had 28 seconds ahead of the main body. Well, the breakaway of 24, so it was 25. It's 24 plus 1. Bettiol will be allowed to go up the road. Still waiting for him to get the restart here, Robbie. And everyone else from the peloton tried to approach quietly, so they had less time just off the bike static.
It's like the F1 yacht series. He's doing the circles, trying to get the timing right to hit the start, getting a rolling start. And he thought he had 29 seconds. So he thinks he's been hard done by for 1 second. I'll imagine when they give him the countdown, 5, 4, 3, and off goes Bettiol.
He's going to try and do everything he can. He's warming up here, Sean.
Yeah. Yes, he's keeping the legs turning, and that's what you've got to do. Keep moving here, and try and get into the rhythm as quickly as possible. But this will be a much more nervous if we're very close to the finish. Imagine if we're, in the final 10 kilometres. This would be a real concern, but we're so far out. The situation of the race, it's not going to have a huge bearing on the end result.
Well, they made the mistake of putting the powder flare just in front of them. They should have put it behind them, and then they wouldn't have had to breathe it in themselves. Thankfully, Bettiol seemed to get through, just holding his breath rather quickly. Van Aert just back at the car, getting a full description of what's going on. Peter Sagan just as laid back as usual, just swapping his regular spectacles for some ski goggles, presumably, because he heard there was a camera around here. Do you remember when Peter Sagan used to turn up for interviews wearing ski goggles, and they'd say, "What are those for?" He said, "I just like them."
Just the size of them, they were unmissable, and they could get a bigger logo stuck on them. So the motorbike, I think they're the motorbike goals. Oh, look at the paraflying. I've got a mate who does this. So Brooksy, if you're listening, I know this is right up your alley.
Well, we are waiting for police authorization. I imagine they want to check the road ahead to see if there's a secondary demonstration. That would be my guess. Security-wise, Sean, it makes sense just to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yes, well, I think they have to be sure that when they get going now, that it's going to be a clean run all the way to the finish. And this is the problem. If the police do hold up for a long time, you're stopped there, and to get moving again, as Robbie said, for some riders it can be a bigger problem.
On en profite, on n'arrive pas à être dans l'échappée, on fait signe quand c'est arrêté, nous.
Well, there you are. Just talking about the advantage that you can pick up as part of a break, all the hard work that they've done, and for some, Robbie, it'll be a knockback.
Yeah, it's a knockback. I mean, they get their time reinstated, but I mean, this is certainly a big interruption, as Sean said, physically having to stop for this long and then try and get straight back into the swing of things, and some will do that better than others. In fact, some may not really get going again and not get that feeling back and hit the last climb and really start to struggle. It just depends on how everybody's come through the rest day and feeling today, and it is a difficult one to get yourself going. Certainly got to keep your mind on the job and not let this be a mental distraction. And there we go, Marc Soler, don't stand up when you can sit down. But the next part of that one is don't sit when you can lay down. So there's your next move, Marc Soler. Hey, he's been doing a really good job for the team and for Tadej Pogacar. I heard someone the other day say, well, UAE must have better race radios than Movistar because now Marc Soler is able to follow the team plan.
Oh, that's a bit mean.
Bit of a dig.
Yeah,
I'm only repeating it. I didn't make it up.
Also, laying down on a verge where there's a lot of comfort breaks going on here, Robbie, I could possibly understand. Let's move on. So, the breakaway, of course, has a great deal of numbers to get themselves back and underway. So they're going to start first, and then we'll have a rolling approach until they get the acceptable gap. And then, and only then, will we get our race restart. It's kind of difficult to start the various groups, establish the gap, and then go for it. I don't think they're going to require them to start from static, Sean. That's the point. So Bettiol's getting himself up to pace. The breakaway will then get themselves up to pace. They will then have road control in front of them until the 7 minutes and 10-second gap has been imposed, and then we can go racing.
Well, I think we didn't see Bettiol starting off, but he was allowed the advantage he had from this breakaway, and then the breakaway is left move. But I don't think the peloton will be left move until they, the time comes, the advantage that this breakaway had in front of them, because it's impossible to control the riders. They come in front of the car, they come around the motorbikes. So I think we will see them stop for a little bit more now to get the advantage. You were saying 7-10. So I think that will be the situation for the peloton. They'll have to wait that 7-10 from the time that the big group, the breakaway, rolled off.
Lightning start from Hofstetter out of the chasing group.
Yeah, it wasn't hanging around. There'll be a bit of that as well, chomping at the bit, as Sean has described. Very difficult to control at a situation like this. I think there'll be a rolling block in front of the peloton, and gradually they'll make that gap come back. I don't think they're going to wait till 7 minutes and 10 and then say, right, off you go. But we are already busy. Just going to welcome back our wider Discovery, GCN and Eurosport family. We're off and running, and Hofstetter has got the release as well as the rest of the breakaway. Hofstetter has decided that he's going to push out from it and try and bridge over to Alberto Bettiol rather quickly. We're still waiting for the peloton to be allowed its head to rejoin hostilities, but Alberto Bettiol is out front. Wanted his 28 seconds. Got his 28 seconds. He actually wanted 29, and he has got the bit between his teeth, and he is going for it. Meanwhile, these guys have not been allowed to pick up the roll just yet. In fact, as you can see, they may well have to wait quite some time. Enough time to watch a quick Tom and Jerry, Sean, I'll be bound. 33.8 kilometres to go. They've got to find 7 minutes out there.
And when you're waiting, as the peloton is here, the 7 minutes, it feels like forever. But this peloton is going to be relaxed here. I don't think there's anybody panicking because, there's no real urgency, no panic to get this advantage down at all. So it's going to be the same situation as we see when they were stopped here. It's going to be your UAE team who will take it up again and start riding and just build up the pace slowly. But that wasn't the case. We could see Hofstetter there. He just bang out of the start, out of that breakaway, and gets the advantage because he probably thinks that he's a rider that I can do this. I have this stopped, I can do the explosive effort immediately. Some riders can do that. Other riders need a little bit of time to get back into the rhythm again. But again, still 33 kilometres to go. Out front, it's not going to be the difference between winning and losing the stage at all here at this point in the race. No,
and Hofstetter, he's a sprinter, so he's not going to be in contention when they get to the climb. So trying to get a head start, but probably more than trying to get a result by blasting away like this, is he's got Connor Swift in that group that allows Connor Swift just to sit on the rest and say, I've got a teammate in front, so I get to sit back and enjoy a free ride and see if Hofstetter can stay in front of them till the foot of the climb, give Swift the longest possible free ride in the wheels.
Meanwhile, Albert Bettiol is busy eating into the terrain before it starts to kick up. We remind ourselves we've got a hell of a long climb to deal with, Sean. How much of an advantage or how much of a blessing has the stop been to some?
Well, again, some, they do not like this when you have to stop for a while, and they find it difficult to get back into the rhythm again. Other riders, when they get a bit of rest, they can be really explosive. And as Robbie said, Hofstetter, a track guy, those guys, they can do that. So for different riders, it just affects them differently. But again, the distance from the finish, if this had been in the very, very final kilometres and it was a flat run in, for example, well then it would be a major one for Bettiol. Would the advantage having the stop, a bit of a rest, would that help him or would that hinder him? I don't know, depend on how he digests that, but at this point it's not going to change a lot here with the guys who are going for the stage. And still, the breakaway guys here, like 42 seconds, it's anybody's in here. If you're feeling good, well then there's a possibility of going for the honours of winning the stage today.
Wind's picking up a bit. Just trying to see how significant it is, to be honest. Looked like a little gullied crosswind section that we witnessed a few moments ago. 31.6 kilometres, and this man is eating into all of them. He's got an intermediate sprint, which you won't be overly concerned about, but it's the climb beyond it, Robbie, where this is going to get very busy for him.
Yeah, that's correct. And that breeze, it is only at 12 or 13 kilometres an hour, but it is a tailwind. You can see the rapid pace that he's moving at, and he's put an extra 21 seconds on that chasing group already, Alberto Bettiol, as Peter Sagan's all pretty happy and relaxed about it. He knows it's not a stage finish for him. It's just getting to the end. So he's having a cold beverage and getting ready to pedal his way to the top. I tell you, I think it's going to be really good news for the group of Caleb Ewan, who was 17 minutes behind the front of the race when they stopped. And I don't think they will stop them. They'll just let them continue to ride. Everything will be clear and be an easier ride for them. But Bettiol, he is making a really good fist to this. Look at that, over the speed hump. He gets the angle on it to take the brunt out of hitting it straight on. Lean the bike over. It's what they call in motocross scrubbing it. So you keep it low, keep the power on, and he is edging out towards a minute.
Nice to know you're a motocross fan like Cav, actually. 30.4 kilometres from home, 48 seconds is his gap. Sean, Bettiol is going for this. He wants to make the best of it.
Well, he's trying to make the best of it, and in this part of the route here, before he gets onto the climb, and if you pull out a big advantage before you tackle the climb, it might put people off saying, oh well, he's too far ahead now, and I'm not going to be able to bridge that gap. But yeah, the effort he's putting in. Will he pay for that on the long climb of just over the 19 kilometres? That we'll wait and see. And again, the team with riders' numbers in the breakaway, all of that will have a bearing.
And as we get ourselves off and underway and back to full action, it's time for me to take a bow and welcome back Rob Hatch. He'll carry you to the line today, but when that's going to come, Rob, I've no idea.
Thank you very much, Carlton. We're just getting some information in that a group called Dernière Rénovation has claimed responsibility. 9 citizens supporting Dernière Rénovation have interrupted the 10th stage of the Tour de France, a statement says, between Morzine and Megève. They did so at a place named Magnus, and they have decided to try and raise awareness to what they call is the annihilation of our society. So a group called Dernière Rénovation already claiming responsibility. 9 people involved in the process. So 29 kilometres to go. Alberto Bettiol out the front. Look at that, 42 seconds now as we get to Sallanches.
Oh, wasn't the World Championships here once, Rob?
Certainly was, and you can just see at the front on the left-hand side there, a rainbow jersey. Actually, in the last few years as well, Sean.
Won by Bernardino.
We could have done with him with the protest around, couldn't we? He was rather good at that.
Yes, he would have certainly shaken them off and pulled them off the road. I see it in a Paris-Nice. A lot of people remember there was a strike, a factory I think was closing or making a lot of people redundant, and we arrived at a group and he actually sprinted into the group and came off his bike and started throwing punches. So he would just definitely clear the road quickly, and that small number of people, he would have no problem.
Well, again, the rights and wrongs, you can certainly understand, given the ecological statement being made by the protesters, the reason for it. But nevertheless, you can also understand the fans of bike racing and bike racers themselves not particularly being happy about what they've seen. Publicity's been achieved anyway. And the race is back underway, which is what we want.
Well,
gap to these. We're going to go and hear from Bradley Wiggins, I think, for an update of what he's seen on the road. Plenty to observe in the last few minutes, Brad.
Yeah, you joined me just before in front of Alberto Bettiol. Initially pulled out quite a big gap. I've just seen the board there. It's now down to 40 seconds. It was a minute at one stage. But interestingly, I was sat behind Bettiol when we were all stopped on the road there, and he was just circling around, keeping those legs going, keeping them warm, keeping that circulation going, whereas the group behind, when we'd left them, they were all sat under a tree, really taking the chance to sit and cool off a little bit, because it is very, very hot down here. So Bettiol got a bit of a jump on them, having circled a little bit more, and was ready to go, much like a track start there. It was like he was going out for a pursuit. So once he'd got out there, and he'd done a bit of a left and a right, and then just over a little hill, and then down got a nice tailwind section there. He did get that advantage on him now, but it is coming down a little bit. We're in this valley now before the climb. It's very hot. He's got a tailwind at this stage, but behind, I think that group now is starting to get organised a little bit as well, coming up to this last climb here. So not the greatest thing you want during the Tour de France. There's a disruption like that, but they're all underway now, and there's concentrating now on a stage win, everyone. I will hand you back to the commentary team, keep my eyes on things.
A stage win, perhaps, Brad, and maybe, given the gap is now 8 minutes and 37 seconds, getting to a point where we could have a change in the yellow jersey, Robbie McEwen.
It is, because Leonard Kamna, he was the best on GC at the start of the day, 8:43, so he's not quite in the vicinity yet, because he's got to get a few more seconds to get there, another half a minute roughly. But I did expect that gap to go up after the restart. The way we saw Bettiol blast off and get going again to defend that 28 seconds as he built that back out to already 48 pretty quickly. But the chase is getting organised behind him. But I didn't expect the peloton to take off like that, and they haven't. They've sort of just rolled back up to rhythm, but instead of being at 7:10, they're now finding themselves at 8:43 for that more relaxed start from that restart point. So this is giving Kemna a chance, and I don't think it would be a bad thing entirely if the yellow jersey passed from the shoulders of Tadej Pogačar to that of Leonard Kemna.
Just over 25 kilometres to go. What's your opinion on the Kemna conundrum here, Sean? I mean, is it too much of a problem for UAE? I mean, sitting where I'm sitting, from a very much fan point of view, I could think that it might be a rather good thing to give the jersey away. What's your view as the expert?
Well, normally for the race leader and the big favourite to win the race in the earlier part of the Tour of France, even at the moment we're at today, it would be a good plan. But when you look at the stage tomorrow, we have 60 or 70 kilometres, but then after that it's going to be difficult for Kemna and Bora Hansgrohe to control, and for Kemna to stay up there unless he takes a big number of minutes more, which is going to be a difficult one, because now we're getting close and the main peloton with their yellow jersey will start pushing on to get position onto the climb. And then on the climb itself, you know, they're going to be quite a strong pace set by somebody. If it's not by UAE Team Emirates, it'll be some other team. So I don't see Kemna getting into the yellow jersey, but you never know. But it's not really an advantage for Pogačar to give the yellow jersey, because I think what he's going to get from it, it's not going to be a lot with the difficult day we have coming up tomorrow because of the huge mountains. And I don't think they will be wanting to do that. But if it goes to that situation, they're definitely not going to be in panic to try and control it. But it's not a great advantage to the yellow jersey Pogačar with the days to come.
Come back to that in a moment, because their sprint points going the way of Alberto Bettiol here. He's got a huge tailwind through this valley, as Bradley was just saying. He takes 20 points there, 26 seconds back to the group. The group is going to approach behind. Again, there's nothing doing really in the green jersey competition today. But, Robbie, in terms, if you were Jumbo-Visma in Ineos Grenadiers, would there maybe a cheeky thought of increasing the pace on the climb to make sure that UAE still have to ride tomorrow?
Quite possibly, as we see Christophe Laporte, as expected, come through to get as many points as possible. That will move him from 5th to 4th in the green jersey competition, led by his teammate, of course, Wout van Aert. The rest, they don't care where they come through. Over the line there to collect the rest of the points was Jack Bauer, who was on the front. He's riding for Nick Schultz. And the important thing, we've seen the gap of Bettiol come down from 50 seconds back to just over 20 now, because the teammates who are there working for other teammates, like Jack Bauer, like Filippo Ganna, keeping the pace high, trying to make sure they bring Bettiol back, get him reined in before the bottom of the climb. But yes, what you said about keeping Pogačar in yellow, I don't think they're bothered if it leaves them. I don't think they're actively trying to give it away by a large amount, but if it goes, they won't be too bothered. Because the only change it'll really make in how they ride tomorrow is they just won't be seen as the yellow jersey team, and it may just be the catalyst for others to be a little bit more active in their own control of the race. We may see even a more attacking race if he's not in the yellow. But I don't think it's going to make a massive difference in any case. And this is spectacular.
Stunning view of the French Alps as we're underway in week 2 proper of the Tour de France. Race began today in Morzine and we're heading to Megève. Last time we were here, Chris Froome won the time trial 6 years ago. Ever since, though, Leonard Kemna has won on the Dauphiné, and Sepp Kuss also won on the same race, as we had 2 days back-to-back visiting during the height of the pandemic and just at the end of the first lockdown. One of the first big bike races we had underway after we resumed. Leonard Kemna is again up the road. There's a chance he could ride into the yellow jersey today. But first and foremost, he is looking for a Tour de France stage win. And behind... Hello, let's have a look.
Well, we've got
one long line.
Yeah, so UAE, they're doing what they just need to do, but importantly now looking at that gap, Leonard Kemner is the leader of the Tour de France virtually on the road. There's the confirmation of the intermediate sprint. Bettiol in front of Laporte, Jack Bauer, Magnus, Cort, Nielsen, Matteo Jorgensen. And the rest, they really didn't mind where they came across the line. We look through Thomas, Kemner, Schultz, Boss and Hagen, all just sitting in the line and enjoying the pace setting of Jack Bauer of the Bike Exchange team, working for Nick Schultz. Now, Nick Schultz, he's 29 minutes down on GC, so more than 20 minutes behind Leonard Kemner on GC, but Schultz is climbing very, very well. And just a couple of days ago, the day before the rest day on the stage, won by Bob Jungels to the Châtel Porte du Soleil, he came across the line with the group of favourites. He was a minute and 12 behind the winner. He lost 20 seconds to the favourites on the run-in. So that is a really good result to be in that sort of company on that sort of day. So that's why I've been talking a lot about Nick Schultz, and I think he's able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Leonard Kemner on the final climb.
Well, anybody who followed his career as a young rider shouldn't really be surprised by that. If you think back to the Tour de l'Avenir, 2016, I think it was, there's a stage in the Alps right at the end. Jai Hindley was in the Australian team. Nick Schultz was a stage winner in the Alps on a mountain stage ahead of Jai Hindley. He's a guy who can climb and has always been able to climb. But of course, doing it in senior cycling is a different thing. He's a solid rider from Brisbane, and he's out there with an opportunity to try and get another stage win.
Yep, and he's done it via Spain in the Caja Rural team and got his big break out of there when he ran third in the Gran Premio Miguel Indurain, and he was off the front with the Spaniards Alejandro Valverde and Carlos Verona, and acquitted himself very well, and that gave him his breakthrough into the World Tour. But he's from my hometown where I was born, in Brisbane, so come on, Schultzy.
Schultzy from Brizzy.
Gilbert just looked like he's starting to struggle. Aggressive early, but maybe on a long climb like this, he'll be up against it. But knowing Philippe Gilbert, he never gives up, and without giving 100%, he will not drop. But for Kemner getting the jersey, I think it's probably rather Ineos, who have Van Baal up there. They definitely won't catch him. They may not ride at all. Jumbo-Visma may be trying to force Pogacar to stay in yellow is a possibility. And who knows, maybe the other rival teams of Pogacar are thinking this is the time to start that work, to isolate him, make him chase things, start to use the power in numbers. Ineos have 3 in that top 10 in Pidcock, Thomas and Yates. And there's no time like the present to make an impact when, in this game, you can't say, oh, let's not kick someone while they're down. That's what the Tour de France is.
And UAE Emirates are going to have it all to do for the rest of the race. Stage 10 today. Halfway through tomorrow, we'll be halfway through the race. And the next couple of days in the Alps, a scene for a big battle. Today's turned into a much harder day than many would have anticipated. Could wear down the reserves, and we might see the effect of today, and certainly the first half of it, in the next 48 hours or so. This is Mikkel Bjerg, who's been doing a really good job so far, the Dane. Peloton almost at 10 minutes now. DSM, interestingly, moving up onto the wheel of Rafał Majka.
They've been riding there for quite a long time now, DSM, with Romain Bardet riding right near the front, and Jumbo-Visma not sitting too much further back in there, as I say it. They appear in picture. Ineos as well. FDJ with David Gaudu, their protected man for the GC. There is number 91 on the right-hand side, red, white and blue for FDJ Groupama. Enric Mas being brought forward with a Movistar team in dark blue. And there is Chris Froome, number 191 on the left-hand side.
And a yellow jersey with number 1 on his back. Just sitting all alone, like he has done most of the day. Right in the middle of the peloton, rather than right on the wheel of Rafał Majka. Here they come to the intermediate sprint. Nothing left up for grabs. Remember, 25 riders have already passed off the front. And it's a 25-man group that is going to fight it out for the stage win. Right now it's 40 seconds for Alberto Bettiol as the yo-yoing continues. 24 riders behind him.
And Sean, it looks quite less intense, this run towards the climb for the main peloton. Yes, they're getting in position, as we see Jack Bauer. He's done his work, he swings off. But Sean, a lot less intensity. Was it tell you about the interest in keeping yellow and how anxious the group is about this final climb?
Yes, I don't think there's any urgency. You can see there, the teams are getting positioned to get onto the climb here, and yeah, they're not really concerned about what's happening out front. They just want to get through this stage. And yeah, if they offload the jersey today, it's not going to change anything in the tactic tomorrow. They're going to have to ride and control the race when we get into that difficult part after about 60 kilometres into the major climbs.
Christian Sbaragli and Connor Swift setting off in search of Alberto Bettiol, who now has 45 seconds. There's a couple of riders joining, including Zimmerman. Also, Fred Wright's there. Off the back in the meantime, Jack Bauer, the first to cease. Of course, he's been clearly working for Nick Schultz for the last long while. And Philippe Gilbert, who is all on his own. Today's not going to be the day where he turns into the second oldest stage winner ever at the Tour de France. This is Fred Wright.
Zimmerman is the man going across to him for Intermarché-Wanty.
That's Connor Swift. Interesting too that Dylan van Baarle starts to get interested with Filippo Ganna as well, doing the chasing down. Van Baarle heading further back. Let's go on the ground then. Anna Walker has something for us.
The final climb of today's stage is a long one, 19.1 kilometres in length, and it's quite a nice climb with the wind in the favour of the riders. It's still a tailwind. The points where you have a lot of switchbacks, corners towards the lower part of the climb, it's quite sheltered. It's quite, when you do have the headwind or the wind that comes onto the right-hand shoulder, it is sheltered. The riders are protected here. I noticed there's many parts on this climb, especially around 7-8 kilometres to go, where there's a false flat. Riders can really build up their speed on this climb and really put the power down. And as I said before, with the wind in their favour, with a tailwind to the finish, and from around 4 kilometres to go, it's a straight running straight through to Megève for these riders. And well, the scenery here is quite magnificent, but no time for the riders to look out for that. Mont Blanc is just over there too, but no time for the riders to admire the views.
Who's it going to be in the shadow of Mont Blanc then? Let's look back. There's Groupama FDJ today looking after David Gaudu, who said he would have been very happy with the 5th place after the first 9 stages before the Tour began. Bob Jungels on the left-hand side. First Luxembourg stage winner for 11 years on the Tour before the rest day. And we've seen Pierre Rolland starting to be distanced off the back of the main group, and they're having a right go at each other, Sean, here.
Yes, you can see there the pace is quite high, and riders trying to get out of that group, and other riders going out of the group at the wrong end, out the rear door, as we say. And Pierre Rolland, another rider, when you get to a final like this, you would expect him, but we know he's been sick. He has a touch of bronchitis, gets into the breakaway. But again, the surprises always, be thrown up when you get into a stage at this point in the race. You could see surprises, the riders that you might expect to be really performant. They might get into difficulty very early in the stage. And I mean, at this point where Rolland is getting dropped, that is very earlier on. And will we see some of these big, real strong riders? I think it's going to be the rider. The bit of freshness is going to be so important here again today.
Dylan van Baarle has just taken off from the great group behind. 31 seconds, still the gap to bridge to Alberto Bettiol. And this is Marc Soler, who's the only man setting the pace behind. Bettiol got out before we had that stop for the protest. He's kept his advantage that he had then. 29 seconds it was, 29 seconds it remains. And Fred Wright alongside Georg Zimmermann are chasing along. Number 158 here is Connor Swift. He's already had a go alongside Christian Sbaragli and talked about the strength here of the riders there, did Sean. But Robbie, we're already starting to see now those who have the better energy reserves.
Yeah, we're seeing the more pure climbers, those who have been able to acquit themselves well in the early stages. And Kemna is the man who goes. Big acceleration off the wheel of Dylan van Baarle. So that is a bit of a surprise. Van Baarle went earlier. Now he's just looking over his shoulder and say, well, somebody else follow the move.
And there are three mightily strong riders for the climbs. You talked about the more selective, better climbers getting up there. Kemna is one of those, and on his way to taking the yellow jersey off the man at the front as it stands. And he was with a couple of other really solid climbers. Andreas Leknesson, the Norwegian, was one of them as well.
Well, the question is with Leonard Kemna, is he prepared to possibly sacrifice a stage win to ensure he's going to get the yellow jersey? He has a really good gap. He's got around a minute up his sleeve that he can lose to Tadej Pogačar from this point onwards. Depends how hard Pogačar wants his team to ride and if he really wants to stay in yellow or not. But Kemna, if he wants to really get it, he has to push on all the way up this climb and ignore riders in his wheel, because it's that sort of climb, as we hear Dylan Groenewegen, who has only just been dropped by the peloton, which is a really good sign for him, riding really strongly. When you consider Caleb Ewan was 17 minutes behind before they stopped at the protest. But this is the Gruppetto. Fabio Jakobsen, number 51, with his teammates at the front. So the call's gone up. Gruppetto. And that's how you just get your way to the top, save energy, make sure in the time limit. A couple of big days to come.
Mark Hirschi and Mikkel Bjerg were in that Gruppetto as well. Sean, you've had the yellow jersey. Day in your career you were in yellow. Leonard Kemna aiming to become the first German perhaps in 7 long years since Tony Martin to pull on the yellow jersey. Would you be, if you were Leonard Kemna, thinking about what Robbie was saying there, maybe using that as your objective, given the fact he's already won a stage before of the Tour?
Well, I think, the situation is he has to start pushing on here because of the slim advantage he has over the yellow jersey Pogačar. So you have to go along, but by going along also you can be thinking of the stage win. So both kind of come together. But I think he will be, yellow jersey is something that you get an opportunity maybe once or twice in your career, and stages, we know Kemna, the quality he has got getting into breakaways and the way he can finish. He knows, to get stage wins, that is possible in the future years. But you never know for yellow, you might not be able to get into that position again. So I think he will be thinking, OK, let's push on, let's really keep the pace high here and try and hold on to as much an advantage as possible and try and get into yellow if it's just for one day. Because when you look at tomorrow, it's a real killer of a day, and he's going to be advantage, a very, very slim one. So, but yeah, one day as a professional bike rider in yellow, you can always say, I held a yellow jersey in the Tour.
Yeah, I think it's worth a real crack at getting the yellow, but they may be thinking at the moment, you've got 9.5 minutes on the peloton. He started the day 8 minutes and 43 down. So he's only got 45 seconds up his sleeve. So it's not a done deal he's going to get yellow. So I think he's going to be torn between the two rather than just... He's going to be torn between the two rather than just try and sit on the front and almost ride a time trial to the top to ensure he gets it. Because he may not get it. If they, take 45 seconds of him, there goes that dream. So I think he's going to be really torn between the two. And at the moment, just seeing if the others will set a high enough pace, the attacking starts, and they really start racing for the win, and then it makes them go fast enough for him to get the jersey. I think at the moment he's thinking more stage win to try and get a gauge on how they're riding in the peloton. And if it becomes evident they're not really trying to chase it back, then he may sort of switch a bit more towards ensuring he gets yellow, because it is a tough one.
He was very close in the Giro d'Italia, remember. Won the stage to Etna, was second for quite a few days after that. I've been doing a bit of looking around at his career today. Of course, once they got into the break, you thought this might have been a possibility. He has never worn a leader's jersey. It wouldn't be a bad place to start with the yellow jersey of the Tour de France. In the meantime, they've still got to get this man back, Sean, because 28 seconds, he's holding on wonderfully well.
Yes, he is putting in a real strong ride here. Considering he was out, all the valley on his own, and the riders that are chasing him now, they've come out of this group. So, the normal would be expected that they're a bit fresher and they should be able to close, but still there's a long way. It's 11.9 kilometres, still to go. So, the guys who are chasing, they'll probably just keep on working away at it. And in the meantime, back in this rest of the breakaway, you can see attacks slow down, then another attack, and that's where you start to, chip away time when you start doing that, if nobody wants to set a strong pace. And we can see Kemna again just going to the front, and they know him. There's a lot of riders here. We could see Quinn Simmons, the moment Kemna moved, he was onto the wheel immediately. There is going to be riders getting the orders. Just watch Kemna. He is a specialist in this sort of thing. Out of a breakaway, final climb to the finish.
And here he goes again. Leonard Kemna already with his third dig. Leknesund is able to follow him. Simmons is there again. It's the same suspects, Robbie McEwen.
Same suspects at Leonard Kemna, of course, at 52 seconds behind Bettiol, who's starting to get really dangerous. Just 11.4 to the top of the climb before it levels out. So it's not so much now worrying about yellow jersey or do a go for the stage win. It's worrying about catching Alberto Bettiol, because he is a guy who has a good long range effort. He's a good time trial, he's incredibly strong. He's won the Tour of Flanders. They are going to have trouble catching him. Kemna now realises that as well. And, of course, he's no longer in the virtual lead of the race already. So he's just got to make a move to win the stage. They're watching it right away.
Jorgensen follows as well in this group. It's now Leknesund at the front. Now for Bala. Dylan van Baarle, Matteo Jorgensen, I should say. 13.2k to the finish line, 11 kilometres to the King of the Mountains point. Van Baarle trying to hit them when there was a little bit of looking around and confusion.
Yeah, it's a very tactical climb, but the problem for the better climbers in this group is it's not very steep. It's a Category 2 climb, and it's got a lot of sections where it eases off. In the middle of the climb, there's actually a short downhill as well. So there's a couple of plateau sections. It's not all that steep, and in fact, they ride at a speed which creates a slipstream for the rider behind them. So it's a definite advantage sitting in the wheel. It's going to be incredibly difficult to get rid of everybody. And with this, like Sean just said, where there's an attack, then there's a lull, another attack, but then they stop again. What really happens is Alberto Bettiol pushing on at the same pace. It'll yo-yo. They'll get closer to him. He'll go further away again. They are pulling him back at the moment, but if there's a big lull, they'll just watch him edge his way further away again.
The gap is changing all the time and getting a lot narrower than I think we were led to believe a couple of 100 metres further back. This is the trio in the chase. Benjamin Thomas sitting at the back of the terrible twosome. Fred Wright and Georg Zimmermann, the two young riders from Great Britain and Germany, respectively. They are now just 13 seconds behind Alberto Bettiol. The Kemna group are further 7 seconds behind, and it's still from front to back 9 minutes 28 seconds. Bettiol's performance is solid, and in that last shot, Sean, when I saw Dylan van Baarle attacking, Magnus Cort seemed to be marking the move pretty well as too.
Yes, well, and we did see Dylan Van Baal there, that attack he put in was a real powerful one, but a lot of riders able to follow there, and yeah, there is that marking is going to start coming into play. If you have a rider up front, and we can see Magnus Cort here just trying to just mark the guys outwards, but the advantage of course is coming down here. As we can see, he's about to be caught by these 3 chasers, and with the group behind we can see more riders coming across. I think with the distance we have from the finish, it's difficult to say who's going to come out on top at the end of this one.
Nice big tailwind all the way up as well, Robbie. We heard that from Hannah. How's that going to affect things here as it comes together at the front? And looks like we might have 4 more riders in.
Yeah, it looks like 4 more coming across, but that's the only advantage for the better climbers in the group, that it is a tailwind, so not creating as much of a slipstream for others to sit in. The speed is really high for those lesser climbers. That does make it harder, but it's a real power climb. As we see it here at the front, Fred Wright swings off, then it's Benjamin Thomas. Zimmerman is the man in yellow, blue and white. Then it was Bettiol.
In that front group, and Cort is in this second group, getting a free ride to join his mate at the moment.
Yep, Van Baal is the one who goes through now. Nobody followed the wheel on that occasion, and this is Danny Martinez off the back of the peloton. Been having a tough time.
Not a good couple of days either side of the rest day for Danny Martinez at all, and it looks as though this is a serious enough pace being put by Mart Soler now, Sean.
Yes, it is. He's setting a strong pace, and yeah, I think they realise that, to offload the jersey. If there was a number of days where it was maybe, small undulating climbs and maybe flat days, they would start thinking about it. But with the situation we're in at the moment, in the Alps and 2 major days to come, they're going to try and hold on to this. And yeah, it's not a really difficult one for the team there. The riders they have in the front from UAE, they can do that, without having to put in too much of an effort here today in this final climb. But what a battle we're having here in the front, They're just attacking and trying to take the legs of each other, and yeah, it's a climb where there's so many people, able to get involved in the action because of the gradient being so low here. Yeah, they're able to stay in there. It's called the big ear climb, and there's a lot more riders in contention because of the lower gradient finish here.
Yeah, and that makes it so tactical, and that's why we see really good climbers like Leknesson and particularly Kemner. They've missed the move. They've been caught out.
It's Bettiol again. Cort looks around. His teammate has put in a second dig. EF Education easy post. Try to send this one home. Just over 10 kilometres to go. There's obviously something left in the legs. Cort again, just sit and follow.
Now look at that, Rob and Sean. It's a big chain ring climb. So Bettiol in that big chain ring on the front. Only just over halfway up on the cassette at the back, but really, like Sean said, a big gear power climb. Georg Zimmerman, he goes again behind Bettiol, and it is becoming a real tactical battle. You can't just say, okay, the best climber should win the stage. It is so much more difficult than that. It's about timing, about when the others sit up, you get a bit of cooperation. This is the chase behind with Leonard Kamner, also with Leknesund.
And this is the point. This is the point where you would expect the 2 riders from EF Education to try and get organised there when Bettiol was pulled back, and get all the riders in that front leading the race to pull this advantage out, because Leonard Kemner's still in contention with other riders sitting on him here, and by going in the attack like they're doing here, they risk getting caught by the chasing group, notably Kemner and the rest from behind.
Bettiol now with Zimmerman, who's on his wheel. Georg Zimmerman, the rider from Andermatt, 24 years of age now, rider from Augsburg, has only ever won 1 race in his pro career. That was a stage of the Tour de l'Ain this time last year, or just after this time last year in France.
Yeah, and it looks like he's really on his limit. He got himself to the wheel of Bettiol. We saw that head going down in between his shoulders, that rocking and rolling. So he's really gone into the red zone to cross that gap. Back to Kemner here with Quinn Simmons, Leknesund, also Luis Leon Sanchez, who has Fred Wright in the group in front. So 2 riders from Bahrain Victoria still in contention here. Also the 2 from EF Education. Dylan van Baal. He has Filippo Ganna a little bit further back. He's been working hard all stage to open the gap and try and work for van Baal, but don't be surprised to see him get himself back in there. Around 40 seconds behind the lead of the race, but there's so much accelerating and then stopping and spreading across the road and the counter attacks, and it is an incredible tactical battle on this climb that is not so steep to favour the better climbers in the group, but really the power men with the presence of mind to stay cool, stay calm, make the moves at the right time, use their teammates as well.
Now, this is the false flat section that Hannah was talking about, Sean, and maybe those who aren't as good in the climb get a chance here to show where they're the strongest.
Yes, well, if you're hanging on here and, you know, there's attacks when there's a little bit less of a gradient, you have a better chance of hanging in there. But the way they're racing at the moment, you know, if you're pretty much end of your energy levels, well, then it's going to be a difficult one no matter what the gradient when they're pushing on and when they put in those attacks, because, you know, the riders that are just that bit fresher, they put in, you know, that big attack, the big gear as Robbie is talking about. It's always going to hurt, and this final 6 kilometres is going to, you know, really hurt the guys who are just about in there. And we can see now the discussion starts who's going to ride on the front, and in the meantime they're going to get pulled back by the rest of this big group of chasers. And yeah, it's a one where it's going to be tactically, you know, very important. We can see Luis Leon Sanchez there, you know, some of those riders who are really
Simmons,
Reed and Simmons. He's very, very, very active here in this climb.
Simmons off the front being chased down by Kemna. Leknesund there as well. Simmons and Leknesund, two of the big names to come out of the Tour de Suisse pre-Tour de France. We knew they were on form. Bettiol's going to be caught for a second time, and he's going to go straight past them. Quinn Simmons, the young man from the United States, on fire for Trek Segafredo at the recent Tour de Suisse. And Kemna, I don't think, wants to let him out of his sight, Robbie.
No, you absolutely can't. And Quinn Simmons chose the moment well. He saw he had a little gap behind, so he chose to run into the slipstream, go straight over the top. But Leonard Kemna, he's all over it. So he's riding tactically very well, marking people, knowing where things can get out of hand. They're still all in it for the win.
We have 5.1 kilometres for the King of the Mountains points to be given out, but it still goes uphill from there to the finish at the Altipont in Megève, the scene for a Chris Froome victory in a mountain time trial 6 years ago. Since then, we've been here on the Dauphiné. Victories for Sepkus, and the man in this group, Leonard Kemna, who, as it stands, is the virtual leader of the Tour de France by 38 seconds. Bettiol caught twice, caught out. Super ride today. It's not going to be his day.
It was a little bit to be expected. The climbing qualities, he's very, very strong, and if they'd, you know, not started that chase when he had a minute, they would have been in real trouble to get him back. But it's been relentless, not in terms of just a smooth chase to come back, but it's been constant attacking. The pace has been incredibly high, so it's shelled a lot of riders out of this group. And we are getting left with the strongest climbers, but rather than pure climbers, you've got powerhouses like Quinn Simmons. He'll be starting to like his chances. And Benjamin Thomas, former track rider, he is really quick at the finish. He's been in great form this season. He's won GC early in the year in the south of France in Bessèges. And if they don't get rid of him, well, he could sweep to the first Cofidis win in the Tour de France since 2008.
Sylvain Chavanel for Benjamin Thomas. We will see. 4.5 Ks from the top.
Same can be said for Magnus Cort, man who spent the first week in the polka dot jersey. The Dane won every category 4 and one category 3 climb in the first few days. And then he said after he lost it, now I'm going to try and freshen up for a few days and hunt for stages. Same thing goes for him as it does for Benjamin Thomas. If they can't get rid of Cort, they will not see which way he went. Nick Schultz here at the back of the group.
Schultz sitting on the wheel of Jorgensen, another promising young rider. He's from the United States. Movistar, it's been a long, long time for them as well. There's Kemna again. Now onto the wheel of Thomas, the rider that Robbie was just talking about. And Fred Wright seems to have been just setting the pace there with Luis Leon Sanchez lurking still in this group, Sean, and he's going to be one of the wily old tacticians in here.
Yes, as I said just a moment ago, Luis Leon, if he has got the legs, but the problem is, there's riders here which have this, huge talent. They've shown that they're really good shape, and to put Fred Wright on the front, I'd not be the tactic that I would choose. I'd try and just keep your 2 men in there, and with this climb as well, you have to have the numbers the way it's going to start attacking each other further up as we get closer to the finish. And by sacrificing one man, unless Luis Leon Sanchez has guaranteed and said to the DS, I can win this one, guaranteed.
And here he goes, Luis Leon Sanchez on cue. Sean Kelly, he's off, he's having a go, and he's looking for that 5th Tour de France stage win. But it really would be winding the clock back. His last came in 2012.
Yeah, but he knows how to do it, and
there's no
He
guarantee.
might fade a little bit as you get older, but that class never leaves you. And he is an absolute specialist at picking the right moment.
Well, he's out there now. Sean says there's no guarantee. He's also up there in the general classification, let's not forget. He's the 2nd best placed at 10 minutes and 41. But he's thinking about winding that clock back, winning a stage in the Tour, and carrying the torch for Spain. This is one of the lowest numbers of riders representing Spain in a Tour de France for a long, long time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they also haven't won a stage yet in this Tour de France.
They have not.
Also, same as France, also not able to win a stage yet.
Well, 5.6 kilometres to go to the finish. Bit of looking around here, and this is going to help Luis Leon, Sean.
Yes, it is. He's the rider that, that big powerhouse, and he can just, grind that bigger gear on this sort of low gradient, and when they start looking at each other, he's going to pull the advantage out. But still, it's 5.4 to the finish. I know 3.2 the mountain classification, but from there on it doesn't go downhill, of course. And there's riders in here. They can put in that explosive attack in the final, couple of kilometres and pull this advantage. We can see, they can't see him in sight, and that is a difficult one. But as Luis Leon Sanchez, got back to the way he was winning in the past, so will he be able to pull it out of the bag?
Well, cooperation behind us. A big turn from Van Barley swung off. It was Jurgensen who kept the pace up going through. Nick Schultz in his wheel, then Fred Wright. Now it's Nick Schultz on the front of the chase, right up ahead around the bend, trying to get back into the wheel of Luis Leon Sanchez. And Schultz was the last man onto this group. He was left behind initially, rode his way across. That's a really good indicator for him how well he's going. And now he's taking responsibility for the chase behind Sanchez.
Right, Robbie, we'll let you go and get wrapped in that Australian flag just in time for the breakaway.
Come on, Schultz!
5 kilometres to go as Leknesund gets in on the back. Magnus Cort there was in difficulty for the first time. And Fred Wright at the front is just trying to slow down the chase nice and cleverly here. Managed it for a second or two, and then Schultz hits him again, Sean.
Yes, well, he is active, and he's putting in a lot of effort here. But again, you have to be careful with the company you're with here in your wheel. If you do too much, well, then maybe you pay. And you can see out in front, you can see the race going away from you, and you can get into a panic situation, and that's where the experience come in, to be able to play the game, wait and choose your moment when you go. And let's not forget, 4.6 kilometres, it's a long ways, and if you have got the legs to do it, maybe just hold back and bluff it a little bit, as they say in cycling terms, and make the others ride also.
They slowed down so much there looking at around each other that Magnus Cort came back. Now Kemna goes, and it's a defensive move, a marking move, a really clever move again. He's got some legs as Fred Wright in this Tour. He's right onto the wheel, putting the anchor on, putting the brakes on, and Kemna looks behind. It can only see the man in red. Still 2 kilometres to go until the King of the Mountains point. Still kicks up after that, though. It is 4.1 kilometres of climbing to the finish. This is all helping the 38-year-old from Murcia. Luis Leon Sanchez has not won since stage 14 in 2012 on the Tour de France. A 10-kilometre solo ride away to Foix. He now has 23 seconds, counting and building. Luis Leon Sanchez rides again. His career has changed. He's become much more of a very solid domestique in the second half of his career, like many do, but really is using his intelligence to ride today. Behind it does look like they are very, very happy to try and bring this back and make sure they keep the yellow jersey, because Soler continues to ride at a pace and the gap is coming down ever so slightly. As it stands, with these gaps, it would be a question of a handful of seconds. Leonard Kemner would probably just be missing out on the yellow jersey, Sean.
Yes, at the moment it looks that way, but again, you know, it just that 3.5 to the finish for our leader on the road, and it all depends how much Kemner can give in the final number of kilometres. But he's been marked big time. You see immediately the moment he stands on the pedal, the rider's onto his wheel, and they know he's a danger. When you cannot allow him to get, you know, that 4 or 5 bike lengths of an advantage, because then he's so difficult to track down. And we can see Luis Leon Sanchez, you know, just still walking away at it, and yeah, this rivalry behave, you know, marking each other, that is helping him to, you know, pull out and hold the advantage.
Oh, Fred Wright, the way he is chasing down every move here. If he goes to Murcia in the southeast of Spain, he's never going to have to buy another drink again as it stands. This is wonderful teammate work.
Yes,
a 23-year-old from London.
He's doing a huge job here for his leader out on the road on this point of the race, and yeah, he's just marking everybody, and yeah, it's working out so far. 2.9 to go. We can see Luis Leon Sanchez, he's starting to suffer here, but I think everybody is, you know, in the same situation back here, also in the chasing group.
Luis Leon Sanchez, 610 metres away from the King of the Mountains point. Now then, this could be a move. The first time anybody's been able to get out of this group without being chased down by Fred Wright for quite a while. And this is Matteo Jorgensen, the young American from Movistar. Schultz sets off behind as well. The game might be about to begin again. Sanchez is riding hard. He will be in pain here, but it's still over a 20-second gap to the 23-year-old from Walnut Creek in the USA. No pro wins yet, and Schultz, though, is looking explosive. He's looking strong, and Fred Wright can do no more this time. All Luis Leon Sanchez can do here is to keep riding, keep churning out as much power as possible. They're looking good behind there now, Sean.
Yes, we can see here, you know, they are eating into his advantage, and they can see him out front there, and you know, the effort put in by Luis Leon Sanchez, you know, a number of kilometres out here in front, and it depends on, you know, how good you are, and he has the experience attacking at the right time, but if you haven't got the legs, well then you're not going to get there against other riders who are that bit more fresher, and it looks like there, you know, there's fresher ones coming up with Schultz and Jorgensen just starting to eat into the advantage, and he's still on a very difficult section here. You can see, you know, the way he's fighting to get over this little bit of a steeper gradient, and it's not looking good. You know, a kilometre further down was looking real good for him, but now it's turning the other way.
Luis Leon Sanchez will take the King of the Mountains points, but it looks as though he's going to be caught. Nick Schultz has managed to drop Matteo Jorgensen. Schultz riding up to Luis Leon Sanchez, who now realises it's possibly better to rest and have a go in the sprint. Let's see, does he have anything left there? Looking around behind, and it's not looking. There's a shake of the head there from Leonard Kemner, who might be realising now, Sean, that the yellow jersey might be disappearing.
Yes, he realises the stage win is disappearing, the yellow jersey is disappearing. Everything is going on him, and yeah, he is you know, showing that in his reactions. But you know, he's a marked man. We can see there, you know, right from the beginning of the climb, the moment he was moving, he was always trying to be followed by other riders, and you understand why, because you know, he's one of these riders that can finish off out of a breakaway, and especially on a mountain. But you know, the gradient here probably maybe not good enough for some of those better climbers, and now we can see it's all back together again. And yeah, is those 3 guys on our screen at the moment, are they the ones that are going to go all the way? If they start looking around and not ride, well then they could be pulled back again in this final 1500 metres.
Kemna's trying to do just that with Fred Wright still involved. Sanchez now trying to recover as much as possible. 1.4 kilometres to the finish. Nick Schultz in the blue and white for Australia. Matteo Jorgensen, the young American riding for the Spanish team Movistar, in the navy in the centre. And at the back, the old campaigner, Luis Leon Sanchez, who, if he was able to win here, would become the second oldest Tour de France stage winner in the race's history. Don't count out Dylan van Baarle, who won a Dauphiné mountain stage down the road 3 years ago. We passed through the town that stage started from not long ago, through Cluses, and he's on his way back here. A great opportunity to take advantage, maybe, as they go under the red kite. 1K to go. It's all to play for, Sean.
Yes, it's all to play for, and the four are back together. Van Baarle, it depends on now how much of an effort, how deep he has went just to get back in there, because, you know, this final kilometre, it's uphill all the way to the line.
And it's Van Baarle who attacks. Dylan van Baarle waits no time at all before launching his assault. So strong on the cobbles of Roubaix through the spring. That was the result of his life. Can he now do it in the mountains of the Alps? 700 metres with a little bit of a gap. He has shot his bullet here. He has fired his attack, but it looks as though he is going to be chased down. Uphill we go onto the Altiport. The runway finish. Time for liftoff. 550 metres. Jorgensen's there. Schultz is on his wheel. And here we go. Finish line in sight. Do not count those out who are chasing behind. It's being led by Thomas at the moment. Fred Wright's there, who of course can sprint to the line if needs be. Luis Leon Sanchez waits and watches. Zimmerman trying to come in back into the picture as well. There's Magnus Cort, don't forget about him. And here goes Benjamin Thomas with Fred Wright on his wheel. And what a position this could be for the Londoner. Cort trying to come up around as well. 400 metres to go now as Schultz bring them back. Bahrain in a great position with two riders. Sanchez on the left, Wright on the right. 300 metres to go now. It's tense, it's tight, and Luis Leon it is who goes. Luis Leon Sanchez, who leads this one out with 250 metres to go. Right at the back, can't hold on. It's Sanchez who's there. Schultz on his wheel. Magnus Cort out of the polka dots, but this time in the real mountains, looking for some success. 100 metres to go now. It's all tense, all tight, all to the line. It creaks up again, and Schultz has it. Schultz to the front with Cort coming around. Cort coming around him all the way to the line. Magnus Cort to the line. He looks around. He doesn't know if he's won. He may well have had that. Schultz and Cort right to the line.
Looked like Magnus Cort got it by a tiny margin.